right, we're out here with Cassian, and we're going to introduce place today, which gives us an opportunity to introduce our marker or communication system as well. So the first few steps to place, just kind of like everything else we teach just about, are very simple for the puppy or the dog to do. And it's kind of more about getting the human end of the leash up to speed and getting some muscle memory with how we communicate and how timing and reinforcement works and all that good stuff. So with place, we're just going to start off by using a food lure. And remember that food lure is a magnet to our puppy's nose. Good. So just get him comfortable with getting up onto this elevated mat. For place, you can use anything that's slightly elevated. Eventually, place can be anything, anywhere. Okay. And we might not even use a actual physical object as place. We can just use the command place. And what that should eventually mean to our dogs is that we should have, when we call them into place, they should maintain that geographical location until they are released. And becoming settled and calm is very reinforcing to do while doing place as well. So we like to start off with something that has a little bit of dimension. So something that they have to kind of step onto and step off of versus starting off with using a blanket or a towel. Okay. Especially with baby puppies, because they don't have great proprioception. They are not really aware of what's going on. Basically, they're floating heads at this age, and they're really just concerned about the end of their nose. So they're not quite aware sometimes if they're halfway off of a towel or a blanket, and that can kind of make it a little confusing. So we want it to be as clear as possible. So using something with a little bit of dimension, like I said, is really great. I love these pet cots. I have them on my website if you're looking for a link to get one. They're portable, easy to wash, and we do want to practice place here, there, everywhere. So outside, inside, around distractions of all kinds until it becomes full circle. Nice. All right. So we talked about our communication system, our marker system. We do have a bit of a funky way of using verbal obedience in our program. So we have what's called an implied stay built into all of our obedience commands. So what that means is anytime I ask Cassian to do a known behavior, the expectation is that he should maintain that behavior until I release him from it. So we have two ways we can release our dogs or puppies from behavior. One way is to use my clicker. His conditioned response to the clicker should be to run over to me to get food without even thinking about it. So if he's in a sit or a down or he's holding place and I click, I expect him to run over to me to get food, which will naturally release him from the behavior. This is a really great way to release your dog when they're in the learning phase of learning a new skill. So using your clicker to release your puppy will help kind of mark the moment of what they're doing in that moment and make it more likely that they'll do it again. So that's one of the cool tricks or power skills we can use with the clicker, is it will help make a behavior stronger, and it will make learning accelerated. So the other way we can release our puppy from behavior is coming up with some kind of release word. So you may already be using a lot of these markers, but typically anything that you would say when you're kind of letting your puppy have something. So for instance, if you've taught him to sit and maybe wait while you're putting the food bowl down, whatever the word is that you say that means now you can get up and go get it, usually we're saying something like, okay. So for instance, if we ask Cassian to sit, good, and then we say, okay, we can release him from that behavior. Now he's going to have to learn it, and we're going to go through this process of maintaining the behavior even if I start to walk away or turn around. But implied stays, eventually, once your puppy understands it, really helps build clarity and obedience. So traditionally, when we ask our dogs to do behaviors and we don't have like a specific release word, our dogs kind of have to read the play. And even though Cassian's a super smart little guy, he's actually a very hungry guy right now. He's like, stop talking and feed me. They kind of have to read the play. So if we were in a situation where we were asking him to do some kind of obedience, and then we stopped feeding him, or something happens unexpected, or we walk around and turn away, he kind of goes, should I still be doing this? Like, you stopped feeding me. And he kind of has to like decide for himself if he should maintain the behavior. So this will help build clarity. Eventually he'll learn depending on how much we proof his behavior, meaning how much we practice it here, there, everywhere with this type of distraction and that type of distraction in this environment, etc., he'll start to learn, even if something really unexpected happens, he's going to be very solid in that behavior. For instance, if we tell him to hold place and then suddenly a child runs by unexpectedly throwing a ball, he's going to be able to kind of cope with that type of distraction and have that clarity of, nope, I'm still supposed to be doing this. So back to kind of going into place. So I'm going to lure him up onto this bed a couple more times. So with place, right now, our criteria is keep all 4 feet on this thing until I release you. So once he's got all 4 feet, we're going to talk about the next marker, which is his good reward marker. This is going to be the word or sound we want to use to indicate, I like what you're doing. Please keep doing what you're doing. Sometimes I pair it with food. Sometimes I don't, but you shouldn't stop the behavior. So like a keep going signal. And this is most likely something you're already using. It's going to be something like, good boy, good boy, yes, something like that. So we're going to lure him up onto this bed. And I'm going to say, good boy. And I want to practice saying good boy with and without food. Good. Good boy. Good. Perfect. And I'm releasing him with my clicker just there. I'm going to do this again, and this time I'm going to release him with a release word. Now I'm just going to pick some generic release words. No, thank you, no jumping. I can also step on his leash to kind of prevent him from jumping up on me. Good. So I'm going to lure him up here. I'm going to use the letter O, the letter K for his release word. Good. I'm going to use my good reward marker. Good. I'm going to use it with and without food. Good. And then I'm going to say, okay. Perfect. And obviously, if he's just learning these types of these markers, I might have to help him get out of the behavior, especially as we go along and we start to build duration into sits, downs, place, etc. He's going to say, like, actually, I think being in this position is actually very reinforcing. I'm going to stay here. So we might have to pair his release word with some backwards movement, kissy sounds, clapping, just to help encourage him to pair coming off the bed with that word. Ready, ready? Lure him up here. Good boy. Good boy. And I released him with my clicker. Perfect. So you'll notice that I'm not calling this behavior anything just yet, and that's just because what you'll hear me kind of say a lot in this program and in the partner program as well is we don't name it till we love it. So typically I won't start using a verbal cue for a behavior until the puppy's got what we call like a light bulb moment, and he's just about there. So if I can pretty much kind of indicate, yeah, that's it right there. Now I'm more comfortable naming it. So dogs, good, will have a better time learning a verbal cue once they compare the action with the word. So we're going to start saying, and you don't have to call this behavior place. You can call it bed. You can call it whatever you want. A lot of times people end up calling this just settle. So place is going to be something that you can use out on a walk. And let's say you bump into your neighbor and your dog's on leash, and you might just say place while you talk to your neighbor. And that should indicate to your dog that you are allowed to stand or sit or scratch your butt or get comfortable, but maintain this geographical location and generally ignore all other distractions. Your job is just to stay right here while I do this thing until you are released. So he's going to learn all that later on. So right now I'm just going to say, I'm actually going to get a little bit closer. Good boy. Okay, nice. I'm going to go ahead and reset that. We're going to say, once he's done chewing, place. Good boy. Good boy. Good. Okay, nice. One more thing I want to mention about our release, using your release word versus releasing with the clicker. If I release him with my clicker, I'm always going to pair the clicker with food, and that's a general rule across the board. If I click, I must feed. If I release him with my release word, I can choose whether or not to pair that with food. And that's going to play a big role later on when we're building stability in this exercise. So place is another function for place is we use it to capture the act of self-regulation. So getting our dogs to learn how to self-regulate and become calm in the presence of distractions and whatnot. So that's going to be, if I'm releasing with my dog with my clicker, that's going to add a lot of enthusiasm and excitement. And that's kind of where the opposite of where I'd want to go when I'm teaching settling behavior. So I might spend a lot of time reinforcing him with food on the place bed for settling, which he's actually doing right now, which is very nice. Yeah, and eventually we'll kind of learn to teach him to maintain that and not pop up. So he's going to find maintaining behaviors more reinforcing than coming off. So we'll talk about that later on. That's kind of more of a partner program skill. But he's a bit of an advanced pup, so it's worth noting. Good boy, place. Good. All right, so the last and final cue that we're going to talk about is the no reward marker. So this is the word or sound that we're going to use when our puppies make a mistake. It shouldn't be punitive, so whatever you may say if he's doing something really naughty, we want to kind of avoid using that tone. We're just going to use words something like oops, you could use no, and we're going to pair it with a little bit of pressure. Pressure is anything that we apply that changes his behavior. So food is a very strong pressure. Physical touch or leash is a very strong pressure. And we kind of start off using more stronger forms of pressure that we use with our no reward marker. I'm going to kind of feed him here. Good boy. He's doing a good job. And then eventually our goal is to use more subtle forms of pressure, like spatial pressure. Okay. There we go. There's a kind of an example of having to encourage him after hearing the release word to come off. So spatial pressure, if you are able to step into your dog and they kind of make space away, or if you step away and they come in close, that's spatial pressure. And then we have social pressure, so using your relationship to affect your dog's behavior, and that's much more subtle. So one of the examples I give for social pressure would be like if you give your dog like the hairy eyeball, like, hey, I saw you do that, and they're like, oh, sorry, I was supposed to be on place, gotcha. So with puppies and dogs that are learning new skills, we're going to use stronger forms of pressure. So for right now, I'm going to use my leash, and we're going to ask him to go to place. And we're going to kind of start to test him a little bit. I might do something that would prompt him to try to follow me off the place bed. If he's doing really good, I might go in and feed him. So in this step of this, we call it proofing. I'm just trying to get that leash out from underneath his foot. So right here, I'm going to say, and I'm going to add some pressure towards the bed. I'm going to try to release the pressure as soon as he moves back towards the bed. So when he's on the bed, he has a nice loose leash, no pressure from the leash. And that's going to be a very important topic that we really focus in the partner program. We really heavily focus on making the leash another form of how we communicate with our dogs versus having it just be this thing that tethers them from the rest of the world. So when he's correct, I'm communicating that with my good reward marker, but I'm also communicating that with the lack of pressure on his leash. Good boy. Itchy boy. Good. Good. And sometimes dogs will itch a lot during training. If you ever notice that with your dog, that's a totally normal thing, especially for young dogs. Anytime they're conflicted, it for some reason triggers like a kind of an itchy thing. Just kind of a weird factoid there. Good boy. So the fact that he's kind of settled on his place bed there is really nice, and that's actually the next step. We start to only reward him for acts of settling. So going from standing to sitting, sitting to laying down to resting a chin, etc. And that's actually how we capture self-regulation and calm. So we can even label that later on and call it, can you get easy? Or something like that. Okay. But this looks perfect, and I would kind of just stick to this. I'm going to do one more like little step that you can do, but I recommend starting off with just what we're doing right here for your first session so that you as the human get used to using this kind of marker system. We're using our good reward marker as a keep going signal when they're correct. we're releasing them from behaviors. We can even do that with sits and downs as well. So we say sit, good, good. Okay, perfect. I had to kind of help him out to get out of that when he hears okay. Right now you can pair the release word with food if you want, but later on we don't have to. We can omit the food after we release him. For down, same thing. I'm just going to check. I haven't had him do down recently, so I want to make sure he can do it before I want to use that verbal cue. Good. Okay. Perfect. Perfect. So I'm going to do one more little step with place. He's going to chew on his leash. Good boy, place. Good. So you'll notice I haven't fed him. Now I'm going to feed him. So that's kind of the next step as well. We start to raise the criteria for what he's going to get fed for. So good job. Good boy. Perfect. So he's doing really good with that. So now I'm going to really up the ante. I'm going to toss some food off. Little pressure towards the bed. I'm going to release it as soon as he heads back towards it. We're going to kind of get that leash out of your mouth. Good. Pressure on towards the bed. I'm using as my no reward marker. Good. When he's correct, I'm saying good. And I'm also saying that with the lack of pressure on the leash. Good. I'm going to toss some food out again. Very good. I'm going to feed him from me. And then I'm going to say, okay. And I'm going to let him eat all that food I just tossed. Good boy. What's up there? Good boy. You missed them. Nice. All right, so we're going to do that one more time. Place. Good. If I had to guess even, you may have already started doing place with him. Good boy. He's very good at it. Good. I'll drop some kind of closer too. Good. Good. You can't really control where kibbles want to land on a rubber floor. Good. Perfect. So I want to make sure I feed from me. Okay. Before I release him. And that's just kind of and in fact, at some point when you've practiced this enough times, you can wait for him to look back at you and then feed him on the place bed. And that will help teach him to say like, ooh, that was exciting, and orient back to you versus continuing to focus on the food on the floor. Good boy. I really like to make paying attention to me around really tempting distractions pay off. And that's a really great exercise to kind of make that happen. Are you pooped? You want the rest of your lunch now? Before we end this video, I want to apply the same set of markers that we've just used with his sit and down, just so you can see how that works across the board for all types of behaviors. So he knows SIT very well. So for this, don't chew on the leash. I'm going to put a little slight upwards pressure when you chew on the leash. Good. Good. Slight upwards pressure if he's chewing on it, releasing it as soon as he stops, reapplying the pressure if he's chewing on it, releasing it when he stops. And we're actually going to use that slight upwards pressure with our no reward marker if he breaks that sitting command before I release him. So we're going to say, hey, Cass, sit. Good. That's our good reward marker. We want to be able to use that with and without food. So right now he has a nice loose leash because he's correct. Good boy. I'm going to go ahead and feed him again. Good. We're going to kind of test him. Oh, good. You could tell he was like almost distracted, and then he remembered he should be doing that. So right there I'm going to say, and I'm going to put a slight upwards pressure on his leash here. I'm going to maintain that pressure, and I'm going to kind of help him get back into sit with a little bit of a food lure. Good. And now I'm going to release the pressure the moment his bum hits the floor and use my good reward marker. Now, this is something that happens usually with older dogs who are like, hey, you like sit, but you really like down, as we start to teach them more tricks, or he might be tired. If you want, for puppies, I kind of let it slide. Later on, I'm really picky because I want to say, no, sit is sit and down is down. And that's kind of an important clarification for me. So if your puppy goes into a down when you've told them to sit, you may or may not want to fix that. The other thing to keep in mind is sitting isn't always the most comfortable natural position for some dogs, although his sit looks very square, so I think that he could probably maintain that for a pretty good while. But we're going to reset here. Nice job. We're going to say, Cassian, sit. Good. Good boy. I could even do the drop the food trick. Slight upwards pressure. I'm going to let him kind of think about it. Oh, good. He has the answer. So releasing the pressure as soon as he sits down. I'm not going to feed him again right away. I want to repeat that distraction. Good boy. Okay. Perfect. He still needs a little bit of help pairing that release word with being released. But that looks great. So that should kind of show you, give you a good example of how that can build clarity, right? He should start to learn like, oh, I still need to sit even though this is happening, that's happening, etc. Same thing for down. I want to make sure that he gets out to go potty real quick and we'll finish his lunch, but he's doing really good. Good job, Cassie.